Russia has also been sending a great deal of military hardware. You know, the past few weeks, it's been like every cargo jet after heavy cargo jet that has entered into Iran. Somewhere in central Russia or the far east of Russia, you've got Iranian fighter pilots that are training on Su-35s. They are already in the training programs. And already Israel is running scared. The supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah, he held a meeting today with the International Scientific Olympiads, okay? And if you don't know, fun fact, Iran has like, they always finish like number 1, number 2 in the top positions of the IQ tests. So Iran is a very gifted country when it comes to their brain capacity. I know the Zionists would lead you to believe otherwise, but they are very gifted. And in this meeting, the Iranian president had a lot of words. He had a lot of words for President Trump, for the Zionists, for those who are seeking to push a new war with Iran. And he didn't hold back any punches, okay? So let's take a look and see what he had to say. The U.S. president boasts that they bombed and destroyed Iran's nuclear industry. Very well in your dreams. I mean, this was kind of the tweet that went viral, the statement that went viral. Now, how do we know that's a lie? That the U.S. and Israel destroyed Iran's nuclear capacity? We know that's a lie for a number of reasons. First of all, why would they be saying we need another war on Iran if they already destroyed everything in Iran with regard to their nuclear capacity, their civilian nuclear technology? Okay, why would we need another war? Iran, as we all know, has a bunch of deep underground nuclear facilities. And before the strikes on Fordow and other sites took place in the 12-day war, Iran had moved, I'd imagine, the bulk of their precious assets for their civilian nuclear technologies into these other unknown underground sites. So we know that they didn't actually target the heart of Iran's nuclear program. We know that for a fact. Even the Israelis have admitted it, okay? Why would we need another war? I don't know, if they've already destroyed everything. Ayatollah went on, he said, during the 12-day war, the Zionists were struck with such a hard blow that they couldn't believe it. They weren't expecting it, and they've lost hope. The U.S. president traveled to occupied Palestine to put them out of their despair. Which I also think is probably pretty true. I mean, you look at what Iran was capable of doing. They said that they only used 25 to 30% of their missile technologies in the 12-day war, meaning that if a new war happens to start, if a new war is thrust upon the people of Iran, Iran is going to be able to utilize all of these new technologies. So however bad it went for Israel in the first 12-day war, and we know how bad it went. Israeli officials were begging Netanyahu to settle a peace on the 4th day of the war. It only took 4 days. The first day, we didn't even really get much of an Iranian response. It took over 24 hours pretty much. So by day 3 of the Iranian response, we had Israel begging for a peace, a ceasefire. The only reason why Netanyahu did not do that is because this is Netanyahu's wet dream. This is his, they have 6 countries that they set out to target who happen to not have centrally owned banks that are controlled by Western international economic organizations. And this was the last one that they needed to target, excluding Russia, China, and North Korea, of course. And, well, they got very close. On that 4th day, Netanyahu was feeling the pressure from his military advisors, and he said, okay, hold off. I'm going to go talk to Trump. And by talk to Trump, he meant sent IDF military personnel into the Pentagon and demand that the Pentagon take action, send his proxies into the White House and demand that the White House take action and that they intervene and that they strike the facilities. Okay, even then, though, it did not go well, and it is going to be 75% worse for Israel if they decide to launch another war. Okay, so there you have some very strong statements from the supreme leader of Iran. He also said the Zionists didn't expect that a missile built by the hands of the Iranian youth could, with its flames and its fire, reduce the depths of some of their sensitive research centers to ashes, but that's what has happened. Now, this was actually published by Max Blumenthal in the Gray Zone. They uncovered that a very secretive IDF military intelligence office building headquarters, which happens to be located under a civilian zone, was targeted by Iran in the 12-day war, successfully targeted. So clearly, for whatever Mossad agents that Israel has, placed within the upper echelons of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Iran has them matched in Israel, because how on earth did they find that? How on earth were they able to target that? And with such precision, okay? It was always a meme that the Zionists put out, that the axes of resistance, they don't have air defense, they don't have a good air force, they don't have good missiles. We clearly saw the opposite. Iran was hiding their true power level. And we also know that Iran now has advanced MiG-29 fighter jets supplied from the Russian Federation. I would not be surprised. Also, Iran, there was this leaked, I don't know who leaked it, there was this leaked purchase order form of not just advanced MiG-29s, but Su-35s from Russia. Now, the Su-35s, it said, were to be delivered to Iran in 2026. If they're going to be delivered in 2026, and by the way, given recent events, I would not be surprised if, that order deadline is going to be moved up. I don't think that they currently have Su-35s, but, it is probably going to be sooner than late 2026 or mid 2026 that they get those Su-35s. But even if they were to come at the end of 2026, that means that right now, somewhere in central Russia or the far east of Russia, you've got Iranian fighter pilots that are training on Su-35s. They are fully immersed in the fighter jet programs for the Su-35 systems. These are very difficult fighter jets to actually utilize. The systems are very complicated. They are already in the training programs, okay? Now, Russia has also been sending a great deal of military hardware. The past few weeks, it's been like heavy cargo jet after heavy cargo jet that has entered into Iran at their sensitive military bases. And what is Russia delivering? Well, we know that there are S-400 systems in Iran. These were being used to protect the Russian nuclear scientists that were working at Iranian civilian nuclear sites. So it could be more S-400s. It could be a replenishing of the older models, S-300s, other air defense systems. But it could very well be that Russia is sending the installation packages, if you will, for the Su-35 fighter jets that will be inevitably coming very soon, because you kind of need a whole infrastructure to even house the Su-35 fighter jets. So I think that's probably what Russia is delivering in part, which is just further proof that a second war on Iran will not go well. This is they already have the best deterrence that money can buy, that the Iranian people could ever dream of, and they have no intention to even establish a nuclear weapon, okay? And already Israel is running scared. So you have all these statements from Khamenei today. I think the most important, but not the most viral statement that he put out was this right here. He said, "A deal that is predetermined by bullying is not a deal, it's coercion. Iran can't be influenced by bullying like some other countries." Now, that basically shuts down the idea of further negotiations with the United States, with the EU, with any of these bodies that hope to rein Iran back into these international organizations or back into the JCPOA. This is basically the supreme leader saying, well, we saw what you guys did when we were abiding by the rules, the norms, the enrichment, thresholds. We saw what you did. You launched a war upon our people. You tried regime change. You did these decapitation strikes. You targeted our civilians. You targeted our infrastructure. You had these proxy extremist attacks with drones from within our country. And now we're going full North Korea. Maybe not full North Korea, because North Korea has ICBMs. They have a Sarmat equivalent now. They have nukes, as we all know. But we're going in that direction. Okay? So we see the statement from the supreme leader, and there's one person or group of people in Iran who are not happy with this, and that is the cohort of Javad Zarif, the most Western cucked of the Iranian political elite, the man who wants good relations with the United States and Israel at any cost, the man who would probably love for nothing more than to be on this stage with all of the Gulf leaders who are, about to sign the Abraham Accords, and they're handshaking Trump. That is where Javad Zarif wants to be right now. But thankfully for the Iranian people, the supreme leader of Iran has a different idea. Now, Javad Zarif, he is a man he is the former foreign minister of Iran. He's a man who is very active in Iranian politics still today. He's the man who's responsible for the JCPOA, which was a horrible deal. Horrible deal. I mean, Iran had to keep their enrichment levels of uranium at like 3 to 5% while the United States was in the deal. When Trump violated the deal by pulling out of the JCPOA, the Iran deal, Iran moved their enrichment threshold up to 60% as per the terms of the JCPOA. This was only allowed because the United States withdrew illegally. They violated the deal. The U.S. was very upset by this. Trump claimed that Iran violated the deal. It was the most ludicrous thing of all time. But Javad Zarif was like a strong believer in the JCPOA. He's a big guy in the reformist camp in Iran. And he is very upset by the direction that Iran is taking, that they are not, he's upset he's not going to get hosted by the World Economic Forum anymore. And yes, that is a real thing. Javad Zarif spoken at the World Economic Forum several times. So he's lashing out at Iran's closest partners right now. He's lashing out at Russia. Okay, there's big drama. Javad Zarif, who tried to illegally insert himself as the vice president of the Pezeshkian administration, by the way, and then he got called out. He had to remove himself from that position, the shadow vice presidential role that he was holding for a brief period of time. Javad Zarif is now lashing out at Russia. He's not lashing out at Russia saying, like, you guys are not doing enough. He's lashing out at Russia because he said Russia was really not the biggest supporter of Iran's participation, entry, and forming of the JCPOA. He's specifically lashing out at Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov of the Russian Federation. Now, Javad Zarif is a man that has been known to lie a time or two. So I really don't take anything that he's saying into account here. But why is he doing this? The reason why he's lashing out at Sergei Lavrov at the Russian Federation is because Russia is providing so much military support, huge military support to Iran right now, advanced MiG-29s, air defense, and soon to be Su-35s. He's lashing out because he wants to create a divide between the Russian-Iranian relationship. He wants to become friends with the U.S. He wants to become friends. Javad Zarif wants to become friends with Mohammed bin Salman. He wants to become friends with Qatar. He wants to become friends with all of these Gulf states and Arab states that have abandoned the Palestinian people, abandoned the Palestinian resistance in their time of need over the past 2 years. Okay, that is what he wants to do. So he's trying to create this artificial divide. He wants someone who's pro-Western in power. I am really not surprised by any of this, but I must say that he has created quite the stir online. And what I have to say, I'm not Iranian, obviously. I'm not an Iranian citizen. I've never even been to Iran. But what I've got to say to the Iranian people is right now you have a critical option before you, okay? You have a critical option before you. I honestly believe that President Pezeshkian, especially after the 12-day war, when they tried to hit him, they tried to target him in these decapitation strikes. I honestly believe that Pezeshkian has seen that there is no working with the West. You were in the negotiations. You were set to meet in a new negotiation date. There is no trusting the West. There is no negotiation with the West. There is no diplomacy with the West. There cannot be. If you hold the future of the Islamic Republic of Iran and the axes of resistance, the Palestinian people, if you hold that close to your heart, there can be no good faith, no trust in the West, because they will undercut you just like they did in the JCPOA and just like they did in the 12-day war and in the renegotiation of the JCPOA, okay? So you have a decision before you. And this is not to call into question the leadership of President Pezeshkian. I think he showed exceptional leadership in the 12-day war. He was injured in the 12-day war, and he's been quite clear that if a second war comes, and he does believe it's coming, that he will be targeted and he will be taken out. Okay, so I think he has shown exceptional leadership. But as for those who are still pushing, and they're few and far between, because Iranian society is absolutely united right now after the 12-day war. For those of you in Iran who are pushing for this reformist camp, peace with the West, trust in the West, trust in the Arab states that have abandoned all humanity, I don't have any sympathy for those of you who are pushing for that. And I don't think the overwhelming majority, 90 plus million people in Iran, have any sympathy for that either. So you have two options before you. You can go down that path. There is no undoing what has been done. We can't go back into history. Do I think that Iran should have established sufficient deterrence years ago that would have actually prevented Israel from even thinking about launching the first 12-day war on Iran? Yes, I do. I do think they should have done that. Do I think the JCPOA was a terrible idea? Yes, I do. Do I think that there's a lot of weird things also related to the martyrdom of the former president of Iran, Ibrahim Raisi? Yes, I do. There is no undoing the past, no matter how dark, how tragic it is. Today, you have the decision to either defend yourself, establish appropriate deterrence, go down the North Korea role. North Korea is looking really nice right now. Their economy is booming. Their military-industrial complex is booming. It is a sovereign, state-owned entity. Of course, they are Marxist-Leninists, Juche Marxist-Leninists. You can go down that path of sovereignty and of freedom and of defense and deterrence, or you can go down the path of Javad Zarif, which is pissing off your closest allies and trying to make good with the West, who is going to undercut you, who's going to privatize your raw resources, privatize your banks, privatize your national industry, split Iran into a dozen different mini countries, balkanize your country, and eliminate all sovereignty in Iran. The choice is yours, and I think the answer is quite obvious.